Hello, everybody, and welcome into another edition of the Pack a Day podcast here on YouTube. I'm your host, Andy Herman. Want to jump right into things today. I want to discuss my offensive grades from week one. I discussed the defensive grades yesterday. I'm going to discuss the offensive grades today. Just got them done. I'm really excited to talk about them. Before I do so, make sure you check out the full list of grades at packerreport.com. You can get everyone's grade throughout the season. Of course, if you don't know, I grade every single player on every single play all throughout the season, get the totals as the year goes on. So make sure to check that out. But today I want to give you my top rated offensive player, my lowest graded offensive player, as well as one player that stood out to me as well. Let me start off by going over my top rated player, who was Aaron Rodgers. No surprise. That's probably going to happen a lot. And as I do these throughout the year, I'm probably not going to talk about Aaron Rodgers every single week. Inherently, the quarterback has a little bit more opportunity to grade a little bit higher or a little bit lower than everyone else, kind of dependent upon how they perform. But he was nothing short of exceptional against the Minnesota Vikings. Let me start off by saying he was better than I had any individual game grade on from 2018, better than any of his games from 2019. He absolutely crushed it. He had a plus 5.7 grade for me. My highest grade for him over the course of the last 2 years was actually in week two of 2018 against the Minnesota Vikings in the game that they tied. And that was in like plus four, basically. He crushed it out of the park. So that was super exciting and was the first thing, that obviously stood out from that game as I went back and reviewed the tape. I discussed this a little bit earlier, but the things earlier in the week, I should say, but the things that really stood out first and foremost was he attacked all areas of the field. He attacked it with confidence. He threw with anticipation. And most importantly, he was doing everything within the confines of the offense. You had a couple plays here and there, the deep ball to Devontae Adams that where he, just kind of got his toes in the back of the end zone. That was one play that was ad-libbed, which was phenomenal. You also had the touchdown to Lazard, just a little 4-yard play where he kind of stopped and let the linebacker kind of stay still and then threw the sidearm pass, which was gorgeous to Lazard. He still had those magic wizard-like plays throughout the course of the game, but he only had to do it on a couple occasions. And then when he needed to, he went out and did it, which is why the grade was so phenomenal. But I love the fact that so much of this game was within the scheme of Matt LaFleur's offense. And that's what I've been really wanting to see these last few years. There's always time for Aaron Rodgers to make those big plays and kind of go big game hunting. I want to see those plays more on, third and long or in the fourth quarter if you're down by a score or two. Then go out and make the ad-lib plays. But I want to see on first down, second down, the first three quarters, those type of situations, you run the offense, save the ad-lib stuff for when you absolutely need it. He did that to a T on Sunday, and it was gorgeous to watch. And credit to Matt LaFleur for just stretching the defense in all sorts of ways. Minnesota had no answers. Matt LaFleur stretched it horizontally, vertically, all areas of the field. And again, credit to Matt LaFleur for the game plan that he put together, but more credit to Aaron Rodgers for going out and performing and executing that game plan at as high of a level as you possibly could imagine. So huge grade for Aaron Rodgers in week one. On the flip side, my lowest grade this week was for Robert Tonyan. If there was one position that left you wanting a little bit more, I think it was that tight end, fullback, H-back position. Now, to be fair, Josiah DeGuara, Mercedes Lewis, both graded out well. On the flip side, Robert Tonyan, Jay Sternberger, not so much, with Tonyan really being the only player that had any real negative grade. I only had two negative grades total, Tonyan and Jay Sternberger, and Sternberger was a negative 0.15, which is basically a neutral grade, especially when you consider how few snaps that he played. So Tonyan was really the only guy this week. And I just think, and I've said this the last couple of years, Tonyan came in as somebody who was a receiving tight end, was a wide receiver, in quarterback, was a wide receiver in college, was a quarterback before that. They converted him to a tight end. He came in as more of a receiving tight end. I thought that's when he looked explosive as a player. When people talk about me being attached to Tim Boyle or Robert Tonyan, when I was attached to Robert Tonyan, if you will, it was because he looked more explosive as a wide receiver / tight end, more of a receiving tight end, not so much as this kind of bigger lumbering type player. And I think what happened is they put on weight because they needed a tight end who could block and not just be this pass receiving tight end. And I think he's still in no man's land. I think he put on too much weight to be an explosive wide receiver, but it's not like he's this dynamic, dominant run blocking or pass blocking tight end either. And again, I think he just ends up in no man's land. I still think he can be a really good player. And I don't think we've seen the best of Robert Tonyan on this season, but I do get concerned that he's just a little bit too big to be a wide receiver and to kind of have that explosive ability to separate from linebackers and safeties. But again, he's too small and just not the run blocker or pass blocker that they need him to be kind of that more physical tight end. So I would love to see him maybe drop a little weight, try to get a little bit more explosive and be used a little bit more as a receiving tight end. I understand why they did what they did, but again, he just seems in no man's land, and I'm concerned that it's going to stay that way unless they change something with his, physical attributes so that he can go out and play at a high level. The other player that I wanted to discuss today was John Runyon Jr. So he obviously got in at the end of the game, about 15-ish snaps. You got to give him so much credit. He had a really nice positive grade. He only had one play of all the snaps that he graded in where he had a slight negative on. But the reason you have to give him so much credit is, one, he played offensive tackle basically the last couple of years at Michigan. So he's learning a new position at guard. And then, oh, by the way, all of training camp, for the entirety of camp, they had him at left guard. So he was focused entirely at left guard. Now he comes in, very first game, no rookie mini camps, no OTAs, limited training camp, no preseason. And where does he go in? Right guard. Now, he did get the benefit of coming in the game at a time where it wasn't super high stakes. Green Bay had built up a lead, but to his credit, he came in and he looked really sharp at right guard. He looked like he's born to play offensive guard. I think that transition, you go back and you watch him at tackle, he's not meant to be a tackle. He's going to struggle with speed off the edge. He doesn't have the quickest feet in the world, although he did test very well, but he looks like a guard. And then he came in against Minnesota, filled that right guard position, and Green Bay didn't miss a beat. So a ton of credit to John Runyon Jr. for coming in, playing a position that he hasn't really played, at least that I've seen him play on tape, or probably at minimum for a really long time, that right guard position. And he came in and he owned it, and he looked really good doing it. So really impressed with all the rookies that got in the game. Even A.J. Dillon's couple carries, Josiah DeGuara graded in the positive, Chris Barnes graded in the positive, John Runyon graded in the positive. So a really nice day for the rookies overall. You got to be excited about that. That does it for me. Those are my three main takeaways for the offensive grades. Again, highest, lowest, and kind of the one that I wanted to discuss in a little bit greater detail. Make sure to check out the full grades at PackerReport.com. Make sure to check out today's Pack-A-Day podcast with Mark and Jason and Paul. They're going to be discussing the Lions and Packers game, as well as kind of going over the latest injury updates, I should say. Again, that's going to do it for me. Make sure to check out tomorrow. I'll give you my keys to the game. But until next time, and as always, go Pack Go.